The movie begins with Nathan regaining consciousness, and he finds himself lying in the middle of a deserted road. His car was mangled and precariously perched on the roadside, looking as if it left him seriously injured. Before he can process the surreal situation, Daniel approaches, whose motorcycle collides with Nathan's car. Oddly enough, Daniel seems unharmed too. Daniel begins to press Nathan with questions, asking how he managed to escape the wreckage. Nathan, still disoriented, admits his memory is unclear, blaming it on a head injury from the crash. Daniel reveals the truth. Apparently, they're both dead, and what Nathan sees now are their spirits lingering after the crash. Horrified, Nathan rushes to his car and peers inside, his heart sinking as he sees his lifeless body slumped against the crumpled dashboard. Daniel, observing quietly, somberly mentions he'll miss his wife, but pointedly notes Nathan doesn't mention the children's mother. Hoping to force him to accept reality, Daniel retrieves Nathan's body from the wreckage, confronting him with the undeniable sight of his own lifeless form. Overwhelmed, Nathan sinks deeper into an existential crisis, and Daniel gently drapes a handkerchief over Nathan's body, and they stand in uneasy silence. Suddenly, the hum of an approaching car breaks the stillness as the vehicle pulls up, and Nathan leaps into action, shouting for help, but his cries go unanswered. The man steps out and rummages through his pocket. After taking the cash, he gets back in his car and drives off, leaving Nathan stunned and enraged. Finally, he accepts the truth, which is the fact that he's a ghost. His thoughts turn dark as he admits to Daniel that he killed his wife. He insists that it wasn't out of malice, but a mercy killing to end her suffering, and before he could explain further, Daniel freezes, his attention drawn to a faint melody echoing through the air. Suddenly, a radiant white door appears, snow blanketing the ground as the temperature drops, and Daniel notes the faint music coming from the glowing portal, though Nathan hears nothing. Panicking, Nathan assumes the white door leads to heaven and the red one to hell, and convinced of his damnation, he pleads that his actions were compassionate, meant to end his wife's suffering. Unmoved, Daniel moves toward the white door, but Nathan, desperate, shoves him aside and rushes through it first. But nothing happens, and the doors and the snowy landscape remain. Daniel, brushing himself off, remarks that Nathan might want to work on his behavior if he hopes for salvation. Humbled, Nathan apologizes for not seeing the bike, while Daniel admits he was distracted by a little girl playing near the road. They exchange a bittersweet hug, and Daniel steps toward the white door again, confused when once more nothing happens. A sudden voice behind them interrupts the moment. Turning around, they see the girl Daniel had mentioned. Her appearance reveals the awful truth that she is actually dead too. She calmly explains that a man on a bike struck her, prompting Daniel to admit that he had been drinking before the crash. Nathan doesn't hold back, accusing Daniel of recklessness that led to the death of an innocent child. In trying to do the right thing, the men attempt to guide the girl to the white door. However, she was weary of strangers, her screams echoing through the strange, liminal space. When their attempts to reassure her fail, Daniel grows impatient. He picks her up and tosses her through the door. The girl vanishes instantly, and with her, the glowing portal disappears. They realize that their time has come, and Daniel hesitates, unsure, until Nathan shoves him through. Standing alone, Nathan uses the moment to once again plead his case regarding his wife, insisting his actions were not wrongful. His defiance is short-lived though, as, however, a monstrous creature appears on the road. Nathan escapes and finds himself in hell. As he wanders in despair, he stumbles upon a young girl lying among the masses. Kneeling beside her, he takes her hand, triggering a flood of memories that pull him into her life. Through her memories, Nathan witnesses her troubled existence. Eerie shadows haunt her bedroom, a byproduct of a large looming tree outside her window. Nina's nights were relentless, and her home was filled with tension as her parents argue endlessly. Her mother wishes to help her, but her father's fear of her was born from superstition. Tired of their shouting, she prepares a clumsy snack for herself, smearing jam on bread with a knife, and despite the chaos around her, there's quite joy in her independence. Nina sits across from her therapist, recounting dark incidents with chilling detachment, strangling baby birds and tormenting her sister, even admitting to harming her parents in their sleep, prompting them to lock her in her room nightly. When pressed about her sister, she shuts down, and the next morning, after angrily demanding food and receiving no response, Nina calmly eats cereal, her blood-soaked clothes revealing her parents' fate. After ensuring they're dead, she kisses her mother's cheeks tenderly, makes herself toast, and disappears into the basement. In the basement, Nina greets Tony, a strange humanoid figure with twisted features, and Nina hands him the bread and jam, casually mentioning that her parents are now dead. Nina assumes Tony must have killed them, but he denies it, claiming innocence. As he eats, Nina excitedly announces that with her parents gone, Tony is free to live upstairs with her. For the first time, Tony experiences sunlight streaming through the house's windows, marveling at its warmth. Nina introduces him to the bathroom, showing him how to use the tub while she adorns herself with her mother's makeup and jewelry. And later, Tony dresses in his father's old clothes, and Nina enlists his help to move the bodies. However, before they do, Nina decides to stage a theatrical farewell. She arranges her parents' bodies as an audience for her macabre play, acting out a morning without breakfast to imagined laughter. The performance crusts as she drags Tony onto her makeshift stage, accusing him of being the killer and declaring that he must be executed. Tony protests, insisting he has no memories of his past, but ignoring his pleas, Nina pretends to hold a vote, forcing him to climb onto a stool for a mock execution. Afterward, Tony helps Nina hide the bodies, and he slides the mother's corpse under a bed, while Nina gleefully jumps on it, reminiscing about the times she would taunt her sleeping parents with a knife. As he moves the father's body, Tony notices something strange. His reflection is missing from the mirror. The realization strikes him, and he was not a separate being, but a manifestation of Nina's darkest impulses. She had killed her parents the night before, and Tony, as her creation, embodies her inner darkness. The doorbell rings and Nina opens it to find the mailman, who informs her that an adult signature is needed for the delivery. Nina calls for Tony, but the house remains ominously quiet. Growing impatient, the mailman hands Nina a missed delivery card and walks away, and frustrated and anxious, Nina begins searching the house for Tony. Eventually, she finds Tony in her parents' bedroom, and he was hunched over the lifeless bodies, feeding on them, and shocked and enraged, Nina screams at him to stop, but the bedroom door slams shut, leaving her outside. Later, as her toys burn, Nina checks on her little sister, and the girl was quietly drawing, forming a haunting image of their parents' enemy, and Nina coldly announces that Tony was hungry. Taking her sister by the hand, she leads her to the kitchen, and without hesitation, Nina shoves her into the oven and turns it on, ignoring her screams. In hell, Nathan reels from the horror of Nina's memories, and his stomach churns as he crawls away. He stumbles upon a teenage girl and her mom, and Julia struggles to make tea in the kitchen, calling for her daughter Chloe, but getting no answer. Overwhelmed, she goes to the bathroom where she finds Chloe's lifeless body submerged in a tub of bloody water. Julia pulls Chloe from the tub with fragile tenderness, carries her to the kitchen, and props her at the table. Ignoring reality, she serves breakfast and speaks about a vacation, desperately clinging to a facade of normalcy, and a flashback reveals Chloe in the tub the day before, delaying her school routine as Julia urged her to hurry. At breakfast, Chloe sat silently while her mother argued with coworkers over the phone. Fixated on a knife, she absent-mindedly pricked her finger, leaving a bloodstain on the table. As it neared time to leave, Chloe tearfully begged Julia to let her stay home, but Julia dismissed it as teenage dramatics, insisting she just needed to adjust. Now Chloe's limp body slides from the chair, her wrist wound, catching the attention of the family cat. Julia chases the animal away, places Chloe in a wheelchair, and ignores the ringing phone. She vows to protect her from the school's cruelty forever, promising to homeschool her, and regaining composure, Julia opens the front door but freezes in shock at the sight of what seems to be a brick wall. The vision triggers a memory, and Chloe was hiding in a school bathroom and was dragged out by bullies who force her to lick their shoes while they laugh and film her humiliation. In reality, the wall is Julia's concerned neighbor, alarmed by her screams, and Julia panics, claiming she and Chloe were leaving for vacation, but the suspicious neighbor forces her way inside, discovering Chloe's lifeless body. Minutes later, Julia was speeding away with Chloe, strapped into the passenger seat, and tears stream as she recalls Chloe's birth, pleading for her to respond. Overcome with emotion, she closes Chloe's eyes and loses control of the car, crashing into a tree. In the present, firemen pull a bloody Julia from the wreckage. They recover Chloe's body, assuming she died in the crash, and place her in a body bag. In hell, Nathan collapses in despair after witnessing yet another tragedy, and as he covers Julia and Chloe's bodies, his grief was interrupted by the devil, who coldly announces his punishment. Dismissing Nathan's defense of Mercy killing his wife, the devil points out that he acted without her consent, and leading him forward, the devil reveals that Nathan's torment will begin with semi-isolation, erasing his memories until he becomes a vessel of pure pain and despair, and powerless, Nathan follows. He enters a dark room filled with lifeless bodies, where the devil declares his isolation will span 4,000 years, a mere prelude to greater suffering. Panicked, Nathan begs for mercy, but the devil vanishes, leaving him trapped and alone. Suddenly, a decaying soul emerges from the shadows, gleefully attacking Nathan. He beats him relentlessly until Nathan's soul is destroyed, forcing him to reincarnate. Nathan has been reborn, and in the living world, a mother gives birth to a baby boy. The devil informs the soul that by sending Nathan's soul back prematurely, he has created the Antichrist. As punishment, the devil beheads the soul, but explains his body will regenerate, and later, the soul appears in the newborn's nursery, ready to fulfill his grim task.